The Yang di-Pertuan Besar of Negeri Sembilan, Tuanku Muhriz Tuanku Munawir, has proposed to remove the Prime Minister's power to appoint members of the Judicial Appointments Commission, or JAC, to ensure the body's independence. Currently, the Prime Minister has the authority to appoint 5 of 9 JAC members, with the remaining 4 comprising Malaysia's most senior judges.
Addressing the Conference of Malay Rulers' 260th meeting today, Tuanku Muhriz said the power to make appointments should be passed on to other institutions with no personal interest. This includes the Bar Council, Sabah Law Society, Advocates Association of Sarawak and the Parliamentary Select Committee, he said. Among the GAC's functions are to select qualified people who merit appointment as judges of the Superior Court for the Prime Minister's consideration, as well as formulate and implement mechanisms for the selection and appointment of judges of the Superior Court, along with other recommendations about the judiciary.
Legal group Lawyers for Liberty urged the Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, to drop all investigations against his critics. Its director, Zaid Malik, says the PM does not hold any special status at law and cannot call on the police to defend his reputation.
He said it would be an abuse of power to order investigations into people who make accusations against Anwar. Instead, Zayed said the Prime Minister should file a defamation suit in civil court if he felt aggrieved by the claims. He added that police intervention is only justified when offenders make statements inciting harm, violence or injury to the public. Previously, PKR Information Chief Fahmi Fadzil revealed Anwar had instructed the police to take action against anyone spreading slanderous statements against him. Bukit Aman also opened an investigation into Baling MP Hassan Saad over allegations concerning Anwar and Israel.
UMNO will table a motion to amend the party constitution in its upcoming General Assembly next month. Party Vice President Datuk Seri Muhammad Khalid Nordin tells news portal Malaysia Kini that this will be in line with the anti-hopping law passed in Parliament last July.
The Kota Tinggi MP said the amendment is to include provisions that will comply with the requirements of the law. The motion will be tabled in a session on December 23rd, with UMNO's General Assembly taking place from December 21st to December 24th. Khalid said the party's Supreme Council is expected to meet and decide the content of the motion soon. The Dewan Rakyat passed constitutional amendments to the anti-party hopping bill to prohibit politicians from switching parties. Under the bill, any MP who leaves a political party in one coalition to join another, whether in the same coalition or different one, will lose their seat. They must also vacate their seat if they resign or cease to be a member of the political party they were a member of upon being elected as MP.
Perikatan Nasional is in the process of forming a shadow cabinet to provide checks and balances to the coalition government led by Pakatan Harapan. PAS Information Chief Khairil Nizam Kirudin says this is to provide a constructive, collaborative and responsible opposition.
Saya nampak satu perkara yang very optimis. Sekiranya kita boleh bekerjasama dan saya yakin perkara itu akan berlaku sebab sebelum ini di bawah kerajaan PN dan juga kerajaan keluarga Malaysia kita bekerjasama dengan pihak pembangkang. Jadi saya yakin template yang sama juga akan dibawa oleh PM ke-10 untuk kita mewujudkan satu kekuatan yang ampuh.
He added that PN was looking forward to parliamentary reforms and heading select committees, including the Public Accounts Committee. The Prime Minister has pledged to form a smaller cabinet, which is expected to be announced this week.
Disruptions to the Malaysian education system due to the pandemic have already driven substantial losses and inequalities in learning. Bernard Au, Senior Manager of Pemimpin GSL, outlined some reforms that the future Education Minister ought to look into in speeding up learning recovery.
The Ministry of Education can pay more attention to the social-emotional well-being of the students. So I think after we've gone through the past 2 years in the pandemic, I think a lot of students are still processing the trauma and they might struggle to digest and express their thoughts. I think it's very important that teachers give them this guidance on how they can express this and handle this so that they can really focus on learning. The past 2 years has made a lot of students went a few years behind in their learning, and a lot of them still haven't caught up yet. So I think it's very important that government allocate more resources to ensure that these students can actually catch up, getting more support for the teachers, be in form of teaching assistants, or like given them some resources that can be used to help students catch up. I think this should be the focus of the Ministry of Education as well. And I think finally, with the different policies that the Ministry of Education will come out with or are going to come out with, I think it's important that they communicate it effectively so that the teachers at the grassroots on the ground, they can understand exactly why are they doing these things. A lot of times teachers, they are doing things for the sake of doing because saya yang menjalankan, saya yang menurut perintah kan. So I think it's very important that right now they are not with that mindset, but they do it because they really understand why is this important to be implemented on the ground.
Skills mismatch is another critical problem in Malaysia to be looked into, says Bernard, especially among individuals entering the labour market for the first time.
This sort of mismatch in terms of what the university is producing and what the job really requires has always been there. And I feel like an effective way to overcome it is definitely giving the students more exposure to the outside world before they graduate. And I think these internships are already there in the system. But I think in order for them to transition even more seamlessly, I think more opportunities should be given. Instead of one internship, could we do like twice at least, for example, so that they can really familiarize themselves with what is needed from the outside world and align the expectations as well. And I think on the same note, I would also hope that the quota system of the university could go away. I think we have come. I think the NEP is set in a way to assist the Bumi Putra to elevate them from poverty and giving them educational opportunities. But I think at this point, we also see different races needing these kind of opportunities, right? I would hope that we will move away from sort of race-based policies towards needs-based policies and really give these people the opportunity.
Malaysia's entry into CPTPP has now come into force despite calls to postpone ratification pending parliament deliberation and more stakeholder consultation. Tonight on Consider This, we ask our guests if there's no turning back now. We'll go for a quick break. Stay tuned for more.
Kepala gatal? Terlepas detik penting, kekal segar dan bebas keluar momor dengan Clearman. Sertai Juara Clear sekarang dan uji kesegaran anda untuk memenangi hadiah-hadiah menarik. Layari juaraclear.com dan jadilah Juara Clear.
Memperkenalkan U-Postpaid baharu. Nikmati data pantas sedia 5G. Perantauan global percuma. Peranti 5G dan dapatkan talian keluarga. Naik taraf ke U-Postpaid baharu dari RM38 semula hanya dengan U-Mobile.
Welcome back. China's former president Jiang Zemin has died at 96 due to leukemia and multiple organ failure. One of the major figures of Chinese history in recent decades, his death comes as China sees its biggest protests since Tiananmen Square.
Jiang first rose to power when he was chosen to head China's divided ruling Communist Party after the 1989 crackdown on protesters in Beijing's Tiananmen Square. Under his leadership, Jiang brought the country out of its subsequent diplomatic isolation and guided the nation's rise to global economic power. He also oversaw the return of Hong Kong from British rule in 1997 and China's entry into the World Trade Organization in 2001. He gave up his last official title in 2004, but remained a force behind the scenes in the lead-up to the rise of current President Xi Jinping, who has stuck to Jiang's mix of economic liberalization and strict political controls.
People in the Chinese manufacturing city of Guangzhou clashed with riot police as frustration with stringent COVID-19 rules boiled over. The demonstrations in the southern city marked an escalation from protests in Shanghai, Beijing and other major cities over the weekend that has now morphed into demands for political freedoms. Videos on social media obtained by Reuters showed large numbers of riot police in white hazmat suits carrying shields and patrolling the streets in Guangzhou, accompanied by riot vans at times. Guangzhou has started relaxing COVID prevention rules in several districts, including allowing close contacts of COVID-19 cases to quarantine at home rather than being forced to go to shelters. China's top security body warned late on Tuesday evening that authorities would crack down on the protests in what appears to be China's biggest wave of civil disobedience since President Xi Jinping took power a decade ago. Australia's parliament voted to censure former Prime Minister Scott Morrison after an inquiry found that he gave himself secret powers in office during the COVID-19 pandemic. It marks the first time a former Prime Minister has been censured by Parliament, though the motion is symbolic in nature.
Morrison, who lost power in a general election in May, had secretly accumulated 5 ministerial roles during the pandemic: Health, Finance, Treasury, Resources and Home Affairs. He defended his action as lawful and necessary due to the great challenges the pandemic posed. But as most ministers were unaware they were sharing portfolios with Morrison, he has been widely criticised.
Mr. Speaker, I note the criticisms made of my decisions. To be authorised to administer a series of departments have been made from the safety and relative calm of hindsight. I also note that as Prime Minister, my awareness of issues regarding national security at this time and the national interests was broader than known to individual ministers and any third party could.
An investigation found that he used his extra powers only once to overrule a minister in a matter unrelated to the pandemic. However, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said that he still owed the Australian people an apology for undermining democracy and that his government would ensure new laws that would require any similar appointments to be publicly disclosed in the future.
The European Union aims to set up a specialized court backed by the United Nations to investigate and prosecute possible war crimes committed by Russia in Ukraine. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said it would seek out the support of the international community to make the move possible.
Ukraine has been pushing for the creation of a special tribunal to prosecute Russian military and political leaders it holds responsible for starting the war. Investigations of military crimes committed in Ukraine have been underway around Europe. The Hague-based International Criminal Court (ICC) launched its own investigation into alleged crimes against humanity and war crimes days after Moscow's February 24th invasion, but it does not have jurisdiction to prosecute aggression in Ukraine. Meanwhile, the G7 ministers during a meeting yesterday have agreed to coordinate more closely their investigations into the matter. It was revealed there that Ukrainian investigators alone have documented nearly 50,000 war crimes, with about 600 suspects. Russia, which calls its action in Ukraine a special military operation, has denied targeting civilians, which would make it a war crime.
That is all we have for you on AWANI tonight. Thank you for watching. I am Cynthia. Good night.
Seorang